Hey, this is Tycoon with Stock Market Investing today, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about how to determine the overall market direction using investors.com and the IBD. If you've read How to Make Money in Stocks or any of O'Neill's theory on the CAN-SLIM theory, you'll know that the M in the CAN-SLIM acronym stands for market direction, and he suggests that 3 out of 4 stocks follow the overall trend of the market. So the first thing you're going to want to do is determine whether you should be in the market or not, depending on whether it's an uptrend or a downtrending market. Now, the first thing I do when the market closes, actually sometime after the market closes because these indexes are delayed, is at the top of the homepage of investors.com, you can see he has the 4 indexes that you need to look at each day. And the first is the S&P 500. The second is the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Next is the New York Stock Exchange, and the next one is the NASDAQ. So what I like to do is view it on my computer screen instead of in the actual paper, which I take the EIBD. And what's going to happen when you do that, when you click that link, you can see that you get a chart of what the market did. And I don't remember whether I said it or not, but whether you're a subscriber or not, you can look at this. And you'll notice that today's action is in red, which means that the price of the index decreased today. This is the S&P. And you can look down at the bottom of the day's action and see there's a bar chart here, which represents the volume, the number of shares that were traded on that index for that day. You can see in this case it was lower than the prior day. So every day what you're going to want to do, you're going to go in and see, did the index close higher or lower, and was it on higher or lower volume? And basically there's 4 things that can happen. The index could close higher on higher volume, which is a sign of accumulation, or a sign that the big money is buying stocks. Or it could close higher on lower volume, which is not necessarily a bad thing because the market went up. But if it didn't go up on higher volume, it could represent some sort of stalling action and could be a sign of weakness in the market. Now, if the market index closed lower in price today on higher volume, then that represents what's called a distribution day, and that's when more of the institutional investors are selling more shares than they're buying, and it shows up because there's more volume. So if the index in the last scenario is closing lower in price on lower volume like it did today, that's pretty much a neutral action. And so for this particular day, it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's immaterial, but it doesn't represent accumulation, distribution, or any kind of stalling. So each index, what you'll want to do is look at that and make your own determination on what exactly happened. So here, I can move on to the Dow Jones Industrial Average and see that that particular index, it did the same thing, I believe. It actually closed lower and volume was lower. So it was a pretty neutral day. Now you'll notice that these charts are set up in such a way that the blue bars represent increases in price of the index that day, and the red bars represent a decrease in price of the index for that particular day. So it gives you a real good idea. You can see the last, I don't know how many days here, looks like 6 or 7 days have all been down days. So the market, as you can tell, is in a correction at this point in time. So as I look at those charts, what I try and do for myself is analyze, well, what kind of day was it on the market compared to the other days, and decide before I actually let Investors Business Daily tell me. Now, once I've done that, then I like to go to the IBD TV section, which is also a free service, I think, even if you're not a subscriber. And each day they'll have what's called the IBD Market Wrap, and it'll tell you what happened on that particular day. And then once I've watched that video, then what I like to do is take a look at the big picture column, which is at the bottom of page 1. And this will also provide some information on what kind of day it was. So you can see in the market pulse, it gives a recap that Friday's action was down and slow trading, which is exactly what we saw on the charts. That the current outlook is a market in correction, so there's no distribution days kept track of here. If the market was in an uptrend, or if the uptrend was under pressure, then they would be keeping track of the distribution days to see if the market is correcting or not. And you also see some leaders in this box, as well as leaders that are up in volume and down in volume. Once I've read that article, then what I like to do is to look at the How's the Market section. And you can find this on the General Market Industry Groups. In today's paper, it's actually on page B8, but most of the time it's on page B2, which is the second section of the paper. And you can look at each index, and you can see the same thing we saw on the charts earlier. Like in this particular case, the market was down on the NASDAQ on lower volume. But in addition to that, you can get an idea of what the accumulation distribution rating is for that index. In this case, it's D-, so there's a lot of selling going on. And you can get a picture of the 200-day moving average line, which you could in the other chart too, but you can see it's kind of topping off right here. Now, in the How's the Market section, there are all four indexes. So you can see how the NASDAQ, the S&P, the New York Stock Exchange, and the Dow Jones Industrial are doing. And you can see these other indexes have an accumulation distribution rating of E, which is not really a good sign right now for the market. There's some other indicators here on the How's the Market page. Probably one of the most important ones, I think, is the IBD Mutual Fund Index, and you can see the trend is down. But you can also look at other market indexes too, and those are right here in this section here. And you can tell gold right now is leading the market since the first of the year. But most of the other indexes are down, and that gives you a good idea of where strength in the market is. So anyway, each and every day, that's what you want to do to kind of get a feel for what the market's doing and how to start figuring out for yourself exactly what the market did, rather than relying on what the media tells you. Let the market tell you based on the guidelines that William O'Neill has set up. Anyway, thanks for listening and have a great day.